Hi everyone, my name is Rani and I am a coach and a holistic psychiatrist. So you are watching this video because either someone has forwarded it to you saying this is amazing, you really need to watch it, or because you have asked for it when I announced on Facebook that I was going to share my insights from the masterclass that Jamie Smart, who many of you would know, who is a very renowned coach and a best-selling author and so many other things. And he did a masterclass for my group called Beyond Diagnosis. It's a program. And when I announced it on social media, many of you then said, can I watch the video? So what I had in mind was sharing my insights from the masterclass because he came to my group and I feel that it's very confidential, the conversation we all had together. And so I was thinking I'll just share my insights, but I think people misunderstood and thought that I was going to share Jamie's masterclass. And then when I had this realization and I thought I can serve people profoundly, so I can definitely take off anything where the people in the group are asking questions and just edit the bits out and only share Jamie's teaching. And so that's what I'm going to do. But I want to set a context. So I want to set a context as to why Jamie, first of all, came to the group and what is the group about. And also my own learning from the masterclass that I'm going to share. I put it in a flip chart behind. So I'm going to share it. So how it's going to go is I'm going to share the context of why Jamie spoke to the group. Then you will have an experience of Jamie with the masterclass, and then followed by what am I taking away from this masterclass that's going to be helpful in my work as not only a coach but also as a holistic psychiatrist. So I hope you enjoy this. So the first thing I wanted to say, and I have written down some notes here, that for a long time I felt I was part of the problem, meaning I saw that there was something missing in mental health in the traditional paradigm, and I just kept complaining about it. And at some point I did get braver and then started sharing it, but again then I would hide back and then keep complaining. And it seemed to me that people were looking for something to help them not suffer. If you go through the traditional paradigm, if you have symptoms of ill health, you will be given a label of some kind. I felt that just giving the label was not enough. And sometimes older people find it useful, especially at the beginning, because they think, thank goodness, now I know what's wrong with me. This is what people think. But as time goes on, it's the attitude of, so what? Or maybe I'm stuck with this for the rest of my life. So it can be quite negative. And also because of the stigma, what I'm seeing more and more is some people find relief, some people find helpful that they have got a diagnosis. Other people find a hindrance. And the risk, though, is identifying as that, as the label, or this is who I am, or but I have got bipolar and maybe I need to be like this for the rest of my life and I can't do certain things because of my condition. Some people might be absolutely fine with that and they can just go on in life and create amazing things and not take it seriously or not make it define who they are, but other people might really struggle. So there was something about what is it about what's after diagnosis, what's beyond diagnosis, not after diagnosis. So that's something that I wanted to bring out to the world. And this year I created this Beyond Diagnosis program. It's been a fascinating journey. I'm going to run it again in March 2024, and it'll be more compact. It'll be 6 months because I've realized from this experimenting with 12 months is that it can be quite long for people, and people want to move on. You want to get the transformation earlier. Now I have learned and I know that how it can be all put in a 6 months program rather than needing to be a 12-month program. There's a quote by Bill Pettit that I absolutely love. A diagnosis is about where you are, not who you are. And that's, I think, is very important for people to know, because over the years, I've been a psychiatrist for a long time now and a consultant since 2011. So one of the things I have seen is that people's diagnosis change, people's labels change, and it based on the symptoms, based on where they are in life, based on their experiences, based on symptoms. When people realize that there is something beyond diagnosis that does not change, that's where we are talking about real hope. And so it's fascinating. I love this conversation. So we had 5 amazing speakers. We have 2 more to come yet. And it's just blew everyone's mind. So we had Jack Pransky, we had Bill Pettit, and we had so far Jamie Smart. The group Jamie spoke to consisted of 11 people. I had 12 people. One of them became poorly and they could not continue the program. Out of the 11 people, only one of them had a physical health diagnosis that they wanted to move beyond, and they were already doing that. But the rest 10 people had major psychiatric diagnosis. Some people had depression, people had diagnosis of bipolar affective disorder, even diagnosis of psychosis, and also some of them are tapering off the medications. When I invited Jamie, I wanted it to be so clear to people that this is not a belief thing, that beyond diagnosis is not just belief. The 3 principles is not just a belief or a way of thinking about things. It's beyond that. And I knew that Jamie brings clarity, obviously, and he had a way of sharing with people which is very practical, and people absolutely loved it. They had been reading Jamie Smart's book Clarity, which had helped. So if you have not read Clarity, I encourage you to read Clarity. No matter what other 3 principles books you have read, or if you are new to this understanding, after watching this video, if you have not already, read Jamie Smart's Clarity. Even if you have read it before and now you're watching this video of myself setting the context as to how we can help people with a label of mental health diagnosis, and you watch Jamie's masterclass, you might want to go back to the book again and read it with fresh perspective, and you might see things like never before, or you might be able to take this to your clients if you're a coach, and have a very deep conversation about how our experiences work. Another thing before you go into Jamie's masterclass, there are 3 paradigms. That's how I see it. The one prevailing mental health paradigm is what's wrong with you. And when people come to the mental health paradigm, they want to know what's wrong with me. So that's the conversation that's happening on a huge scale all over the world. What's wrong with you and what's wrong with me? The other paradigm that has come more recently is the trauma-informed paradigm, like what happened to you. And don't get me wrong, there is a place for the traditional paradigm when people are acutely unwell, and also the trauma-informed paradigm, like what happened to you, to really understand what the person's trajectory has been and why they are the way they are at the moment, like what's happened in their life. So it's very important to be trauma informed. And the paradigm I point people to is the mental wealth paradigm, the 3 principles paradigm. And we'll come to that because we are looking at what's already within you, not within you as in the body or in the personal mind. So now, why don't you go and watch the Jamie Smart masterclass that's been edited? So I'll see you soon. Welcome everyone to this very special Clarity Edition, the one where we are going to learn from none other than Jamie Smart. So I've already talked to you a lot about who Jamie is for me, but I'll say it again. Who is Jamie for me? Now, I've never trained with Jamie before. He doesn't owe me anything. I've not been a clarity coach. I've not trained with him or anything. However, I have come to know about Jamie's work, obviously, because of the 3 principles. And I met Jamie for a few years ago. He hardly knew me, but he was wanting to connect with me and then wanting to support me. He also invited me to I think it was a kind of charity program. I don't know whether you remember, Jamie, but you invited me for something with the other members of your team, the Clarity team. I felt so honored. I still have those photos. Wow, I'm not a member of the team, but I felt so included. So over the years, Jamie has been my colleague. I would love to call him my friend and someone who has been supporting the work I bring into mental health around the three principles. When I wrote my book, so he endorsed my book, and he also was one of the speakers for the Mental Wealth Summit that Suraj and I did. It was not last year, I think it was the year before, and which was a great success. This is a guy who is well known throughout the world. He's a top world-class coach, and here he is in our own little Beyond Diagnosis group, wanting to enlighten us, to give us his time, a couple of hours of his time. And I feel so honored that he said yes to coming to this program and speaking to all of us. So, Jamie, over to you. Lovely to.
Oh, thank you for the kind introduction, Rani. And I got to say, I feel honored to be asked to speak to you guys because I know that you're all here because you want results. You've in some way, I imagine, had a glimpse of the possibility of this understanding, of the promise of this understanding, and you want to, I assume, experience it more fully and experience the benefits of it more fully in your life. And so I feel very honored that Rani would invite me to work with you and share what I've seen. And what I'm going to do, I put together a little presentation, and I've got some things I want to go through with you. This presentation is called The Teddy Bear Factor: Realize Your Potential, Awaken Peace of Mind, and Thrive in a Complex World. A quick outline. We're going to start with my promise to you. In fact, I'll do that first before I tell you the rest of the outline. Here's my promise to you. My promise to you is, as you sit here right now, is that you have a source of resilience and realization and transformation at the heart of your being. You've come in with this. Oh, by the way, over the next 2 hours, I'm going to be saying a bunch of stuff. I'm going to do some coaching demonstrations. I'll answer questions, all that stuff. I'll be making lots of assertions and claims and that sort of thing. I don't want you to take anything that I say as true. Like, I don't need you to believe anything I say. What I'm going to invite you to do instead is to evaluate it against your own experience, try it out in your own life and see what happens. See what happens and make up your own mind. Don't take my word for it. Make up your own mind. And we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, my kickoff assertion, my promise to you is that you have a source of resilience and realization and transformation, and it resides at the heart of your being. And it's already there. You were born with it. It has been there every day of your life, and it will be for the rest of your life. And this innate capacity has the power to transform your experience and have you living a beautiful life no matter what. Now, by no matter what your upbringing was like, no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what befalls you in life, no matter what medication you might be on or what diagnosis you may have been given, no matter what your circumstances are, your situation is, your beliefs about yourself are, that, and again, I'm not saying you should take my word for this. I'm going to be making my case for this. So this isn't about try on this belief system. You'll like it way better. I'm going to be making a case for this. By the way, I'm very happy for you guys to go, that is bullshit, prove it, that sort of thing. I don't mind that at all. In fact, my take on this is, if what Rani and I are pointing to are actually principles, like facts of life, then they'll prove themselves. They'll demonstrate themselves to be true or not. And if they don't, then I want to be done with them as quickly as possible. So I'm not trying to advocate for these. I'm saying I'm going to be pointing to stuff that looks to me to be legit, And I'm going to be inviting you to look along with me and see if that's not the case and make up your own mind. So that's what we're going to be doing. But feel free to call bull at any time. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I like it, actually. So yeah, you've got a source of resilience and realization and transformation at the heart of your being. This innate capacity has the power to transform your experience and have you living a beautiful life no matter what. And you have the innate capacity to realize this for yourself. That last one sounds like an add-on, but that's actually the most important bit of all. So we'll be talking about that. So outline, my promise to you, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story so you can get to know me real quick. That'll maybe be 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to lay out some working assumptions, and we're going to talk about your innate capacity for insight, that last one, because that's so important. So we're going to be talking about that. And then we'll get into the teddy bear factor and what that is. And if we've got time, we'll look at the impact elevator and the power of subtraction, and then we'll do a coaching demo. And then if during the coaching demo, we get into a really nice feeling at some point, we may explore metaphors of identity, or we may leave that till later. And then we can do some Q&A. But we don't have to wait till the end for Q&A. You can ask me questions at pretty much any time. I say pretty much any time, because if I'm doing a coaching demo with someone, I'll ask you to hold your questions till the end. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Real quick, oh, by the way, for the last 2 hours, at 5 o'clock, I was coaching a client one-on-one. This guy's a retired psychiatrist, and I'm working with him over the course of a year in front of an audience of 60 coaches and therapists and change workers who are watching. So I coached him for an hour between 5 and 6, and then between 6 and it was 6:15 and 7. I answered their questions about the session. So I've been talking for the last, and then I come on to here. And I'm telling you that because I'm going at large group Q&A speed at the moment, but slowly I'll dial down over the next 10 minutes or so. So just in case you think I may be a little more exuberant or enthusiastic than you're used to for these sessions. So let me tell you a little bit about me and my story. So what qualifies me to be your guide? So here's all the mainstream stuff. I'm a Sunday Times best-selling author, speaker, and coach. I've been on all the usual media outlets and Psychologies magazine. I've done keynote speeches at household name companies that you'll know, and the NATO Defense College in Rome. I've been on Sky TV. I've had multiple best-selling books. But here's what really qualifies me to be your guide. When I was a little kid, so I grew up in a bit of a madhouse. My dad was a chronic alcoholic. My mom was addicted to prescription medication. And I used to have severe stress and anxiety, okay? And then when I was 12, I discovered an amazing technique for resolving it, which was drinking alcohol. It worked fucking great. And so I started drinking. And the problem was I wasn't very good at it. I would pass out and throw up and all that sort of thing. But I was I was used to getting better at stuff. I was pretty persistent. So I thought, I'll just stick at it till I get better at it. So I worked at getting better at drinking for about getting on for 20 years. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I was married and my wife was going to leave me. And so I said, don't worry, babe, I'll stop drinking. So I stopped drinking. And when I stopped drinking, I started going fucking nuts because I didn't realize that for me, alcohol had been medication for a thinking problem that I didn't even know I had. And when I say a thinking problem, it wasn't even really a thinking problem. It was a misunderstanding about the nature of life, about how our experience is created and who we are. And so I basically started recovering from alcoholism. And that awakened an interest in the mind and in spirituality. And I trained in hypnosis and neurolinguistics, and I learned all kinds of psychology. And in 2009, so what's that, 14 years ago, I stumbled across the principles. And these were the best kept secret in psychology. Like, I'd been around the block, I'd studied everything. And I started exploring this understanding. And at first I was like, this is just another belief system. This is just some new age bullshit. But I started having insights. And my first insight was, oh, everything you've been looking for outside of you is already there within you. Now, when I say everything, I don't mean like iPhones, cool shoes, and houses, but the experience of peace of mind and being and love and joy and happiness and contentment and that sort of thing. I suddenly realized that can only be found within. Now, I'd read all and heard from all kinds of people over the years saying that, and I knew that intellectually, but I went from knowing it intellectually to knowing it in my heart. I realized it. And my second realization, just a few weeks later, was, oh, the fact that a person can see or hear or feel or experience, the fact that a person has perceptions at all, like the fact that a person can even hear my voice, means they have the source of innate mental health within them, that they have this source of resilience, realization, and transformation already there, built into them. Now, I went from not knowing that to knowing it like I know my own name. And so that was a game changer in my work as a coach and a change worker, as a therapist, because all of a sudden, I became so much more hopeful for my clients. A client would sit down in front of me and they would be telling me about everything that was wrong with them and how bad their chances were and all that sort of stuff. And I'd be looking at them and I'm like, oh, you don't realize what you got going for you. You're going to be fine. And it's not that I was telling them that, but I could feel it. I could see it. I knew it. And they would pick up on it. So my clients started getting better, faster, and the results were amazing. And then in June of that year, so this is, 14 years ago, one morning, I woke up and I was like, oh, these are principles. This understanding is to psychology what the discovery of germs was to medicine. And the moment I realized that, I called up my office and I told my team, we're getting out of the NLP and personal development business. There are principles for psychology. We're changing direction. That's what had me write my books. That's what had me connect with Rani, because I really see it's interesting. I say it's interesting. It's interesting to me. This may be boring to you, so stop me if I'm geeking out too much. But not so long ago, in the big scheme of things, in the 1800s, Joseph Lister was a surgeon in London, and he was experimenting with antiseptic surgery because he believed that there were tiny invisible creatures that caused infections, germs. And all the other doctors were like, that's nonsense. But what he saw was so many people were moving into the cities that they were having like this humanitarian crisis in health. There were so many people getting sick. And the collision of the Industrial Revolution with their misunderstanding of the nature of infection was causing just this huge surge in illness. We've got an analogous situation today. We've got the information revolution colliding with a misunderstanding of mental health, and it's causing a humanitarian crisis in mental health. There was an article in Bloomberg, the financial papers, literally last Friday, saying there's this crisis in mental health that's causing it. That's because society is laboring under a misunderstanding. So my mission in life is to wake people up to the truth of who they really are and help them awaken others. So that's what I'm here with you to do tonight, which gets us where? Well, which gets us to your innate capacity for realization. So you may have seen this before. Can anyone not see the big white arrow in the FedEx logo? Can everyone see that? The big white arrow in the FedEx logo? You see the big white arrow there? Anyone not see it by a show of hands? Anyone not see it? Okay, check it out. I'll sketch it out for you. Now turn on your, actually, if you don't mind, turn on your speakers. I want you to hear your microphones. I want you to hear something. If you haven't seen it before, I want you to hear something. So turn on your microphone. You don't need to say anything. This will be fine. I'm going to just trace out where the arrow is. Can you see the pointer on my pen? Realization is an interesting word because here's the thing about that arrow. The FedEx logo, I don't know when the FedEx logo was developed, but 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you have seen the FedEx logo thousands of times. If you watch the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, you've seen it hundreds of thousands of times because it was all throughout that movie. That arrow has been there the whole time. That's not a new arrow. That's been in the logo the whole time. So it was always there. It was always part of reality. But the people who just went, oh, I see it. You just realized it. Your perceptions were brought more closely into alignment with reality. Does that make sense? Now, every time you see that logo from now on, you're going to remember what we're talking about. You're going to remember this every time you see it, because what you're going to remember is that you have an innate capacity for realization that you were born with, which is an innate capacity to adjust your perceptions with the truth of reality, with what's already there. And it's one of the most valuable gifts you were born with. And most people don't even rate it. But it's an incredible ability because it's an evolutionary skill. Now, when I say an evolutionary skill, the fact that you can see and hear me or the room around you or anything else means a couple of things. One of the things it means is that you come from a long line of creatures stretching back millions of years through prehistory, all the way through to the dawn of time, okay? All the way to protozoa and protoplasm back at hundreds of millions of years ago. And every single one of your ancestors managed to survive until breeding age, hook up with someone at least once, and pass on their genetic material to the next generation. And if that hadn't happened, that's a whole lot of sex. If that hadn't happened, you wouldn't be here today. So that's happened in your lineage millions of times in a row. Okay? So you come from a long, unbroken line of creatures that are entirely adapted to life on this planet. You are built for reality. You are optimized to live, to survive, to thrive in this domain that we call reality. And one of the gifts that allows you to do that is your innate capacity for realization. And it's a really important evolutionary power because it allows you to continually update your perceptions to bring them more and more closely into line with the dynamically changing reality. It's really important, and you can do that. And if you just saw that FedEx logo for the first time today, who just saw it for the first time today, that arrow for the first time today? Okay, you literally just had a real-time example of your innate capacity for realization, updating your nervous system, updating your embodied understanding of the world to bring it more closely in line with a reality that's already there, that's already existing. Are you with me so far? Yes, no, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, so you're with me. So what I'm saying is that simple thing, just the fact that you can look at a logo that you've seen 1,000 times before and suddenly see something new in it that was already there the whole time, means you have an innate capacity for realization. Now, that innate capacity for realization wasn't built into you so that you could see arrows in logos. It's a much more important and powerful capacity. It's there so that you can live, survive, and thrive on a planet that is always changing, okay? And its specific purpose is so that you can recognize things that are true about the world and let go of old ideas that no longer serve you. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So let's see which gets us where. Okay. By the way, I am all over the place when I teach. I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't try and follow it. There's no need. So, working assumptions, you're built for reality and optimized for results. Okay, that's working assumption number one. Working assumption number two, your mind works one way from the inside out, no exceptions, 100% of the time. Now, what do I mean by that? Check this out. Hold up your hand in front of you. Literally do it, your actual hand. Now, see that hand? As you look at your hand, it seems like you're looking out through your eyes at a hand out there, right? Like out through little windows in your head at a hand out there. Does it seem like that? Yeah, that's how it seems to me too. That's not what's actually going on. A quick examination of anyone's head will show there are no windows in your head. What's happening is that raw data in the form of light energy is pouring into your eyes. And then your deeper psychological and neurophysiological properties are saying, what must be out there for me to be receiving this data? And then your mind creates a guess of what it thinks is out there. Have you ever had that thing where you're walking down the street and you see a friend and you start waving to them and then they get a little closer and it's not them and you pretend you were right? It's not like you saw them and said, there's a 50-50 chance that's Billy. I'm going to start waving like a lunatic. No, you saw them. You saw them. You took your deeper neurophysiological properties, took a guess, hallucinated your friend based on the data you had. And when they got a little closer, you went, oh, that's not them, right? We're doing that all the time. You're doing that right now. You're guessing at a world and then creating it from within based on the data. Now, I'm not saying there's not a world. As best I can tell, there is, and we have senses for good reason to navigate this world. But your experience of the world, including everything you can see, everything you can hear, everything you can feel and sense and taste and smell, is being generated from within 100% of the time using what I'm calling the power of thought. No exceptions. And you have the capacity to realize the truth of that for yourself. And as you do, life's going to get a lot better. You're built for reality, optimized for results, optimized for life on this planet. Your mind works one way from the inside out 100% of the time, no exceptions. You have an innate capacity for resilience, realization, and well-being. So you can realize all of this for yourself, just like you realized the arrow in the FedEx logo. Your innate capacity for realization is designed by millions of years of evolution to help you discover things that are true and then update your neurophysiology accordingly. So you have a built-in real stuff discovery mechanism. I gave you an example of it with the arrow. But my assertion is the stuff I'm showing you and the stuff Rani's pointing to and that we're talking about, that's real stuff too. And just like you were able to see that FedEx logo. You're going to be able to see, hear, feel, and realize this. And as you do, it's going to make a difference to you. And so that's my fourth working assumption. You can realize all of this for yourself with your FedEx logo discovery mechanism. And as you do, you can realize your potential, awaken peace of mind, and thrive in a complex and uncertain world. Well, let's face it, the world seems complex and uncertain, but it's always been like that. Sometimes we have periods where there's the illusion of certainty, but it's always complex and uncertain. So you're built for that. You're built for that. In fact, the world we live in today, in whatever year it is, 2023, it's way safer to be a human being today than it ever has been before, right? We live at one of the, in many ways, one of the safest times in history. Of course, that can change at any point, but you're built for reality. You're built for reality. So that brings us to, any questions so far? By the way, I've been talking nonstop for half an hour. Can you believe it? Does this guy shut up? Not if I can help it, but any questions? And by the way, feel free to call bull on any of this. I'm not bothered. Great question. Thanks for asking it all. I'm really glad you asked it. And bear in mind that for everyone who put up your hand again, if you saw the arrow for the first time tonight. Okay, so that's like most of the people on this call. But I swear you've seen that logo thousands of times. But until someone pointed to it and made it visible to you, it passed you by. So I'll tell you a story. By the end of this talk, you're going to think I'm obsessed with germs and bacteria, but I'm not. But so I was talking to one of my clients. She lived in Singapore at the time. And I was talking to her about this stuff. And if you stop and think about it for a moment, so my assertion is you have this innate capacity for realization. And it's specifically for figuring out stuff that's already real, stuff that's true. So if you stop and think about it for a moment, when you were born into gravity, right? And when you were a little baby, you were terrible at gravity. You were like, have you seen babies? They are rubbish at gravity. They can't sit up. They fall over. They're terrible at it. But you spent the first 6 years of your life on a gravity crash course. And by the time you were 5, 6, 7, you had such a good embodied understanding of the fact of gravity that you're able to run and jump, stand up and run around and balance on one foot and all that sort of stuff. And you've used that embodied understanding of gravity 100 times today without even thinking about it. Do me a favor, stand up for a second or sit up for a second. Just notice, like you got to use your muscles and you got to coordinate, but you don't have to think about, okay, how's the principle of gravity work here? You can sit down again now. You do it automatically without thinking about it because you've got an embodied understanding of the fact of gravity. And you used your innate capacity for insight to develop that embodied understanding. Now, the thing with gravity is you can't miss it. If you meet someone and they say, I don't believe in gravity, it's fill your boots. It believes in you. Like you can't opt out of it because it's a fact. Now let's look at germs. For most of human history, people didn't know about germs. So I've got an article from 1812 from the New England Journal of Medicine, which is a legit medical journal. It's one of the leading medical journals in the world. And they were looking at the causes of childbed fever. And they had a list of a dozen causes of childbed fever. Childbed fever was horrible, by the way. Like 1 in 4 women in childbirth got childbed fever called puerperic fever, and they would die or be horribly mangled by it, and it would result in the death of the mother and the child. It was nasty. 1 in 4. And women used to have 4 to 6 children at that time. So it was bad, right? In the hospitals at that time. So they had this article on the causes of childbed fever. And they had this list of causes: taking long journeys, bad weather, vigorous exercise, the bad smells, the mental state of the mother, all these causes. The one thing that wasn't on the list was bacteria. And the only thing that causes childbed fever is bacteria. So the one thing that caused it wasn't on the list because people didn't know about germs in 1812. They didn't know about the link between germs and infection. In fact, in 1870 or 71, the president of the USA, President Garfield, was shot by a would-be assassin. He was shot twice, once in the back and once in the arm, but he survived his bullet wounds. So President Garfield, obviously he's president of the US, he's got access to the best doctors money can buy, but the best doctors money can buy in 1870 didn't believe in germs. So you know what they did? They tried to dig the bullets out with their dirty fingers. And he got an infection and he died 11 weeks later because no one knew about it. So the one thing that would have saved him, he didn't know about. So anyway, so I'm talking to my client, I'm telling her this story. She goes, I said, with gravity, you can't miss it, right? Whereas with germs, people missed it for most of history. So until someone makes it visible to you, you're not going to see it. She said, that happened to my daughter. I said, what? So she had a 5-year-old daughter. Her daughter went into school one day and her teacher said, today we're going to learn about germs. And she got 2 of these little kids and put glitter on their hands. That glitter that little girls like, she put glitter on 2 of the little kids' hands. And she said, at the end of the day, we're going to see where the glitter is. So they're like, oh, let's find out. Where do you think the glitter was by the end of the day? Fucking everywhere. Every surface up to about 4 feet is covered with glitter. And the teacher goes, that's what germs are like, except they're invisible. Boom. She's taught the kids to hallucinate germs. She's given them eyes for something that's been there all along. Just like I gave you eyes for that FedEx, for that arrow in the FedEx logo. It's been there all along, but now you've got eyes for it. Every time you see it, you're going to remember your innate capacity for realization. That's what she did with those little kids. And someone did that for you. That's why you haven't died of a horrible infection, because you wash your hands, and if a sandwich falls on the floor, you pick it up before the 3 seconds is up or whatever, because you know about germs, right? And you've got an embodied understanding of it. You understand it so well that you can do all that stuff without even thinking about it. You're making judgment calls about how clean a surface has to be before you prepare food on it, all that sort of stuff. You've got an embodied understanding of it because someone made it visible to you. So my job is to take something that's real but invisible and make it visible to you, because I know that as soon as it's visible to you, boom, you're going to go on a learning curve and you're going to start seeing it deeper and deeper. So that's what I'm aiming to do here today. Does that make sense, guys? Technology is a double-edged sword. The Industrial Revolution seems to have sparked a kind of a tenfold increase in general quality of life and that sort of thing. Having said that, there are ways in which technology is isolating people and that sort of thing. So I think it's a challenge that we have to deal with. How it seems to me, it's funny actually. When I wrote my first book, Clarity, one of the things I pointed out is that because of the information revolution specifically, our attention is under attack. There's basically, attention is the most valuable commodity in the world. Whether it's Facebook or Google or YouTube or whatever, they're vying for your attention. And if you stop and think about it, your attention is what you're using to live your life. Like, that's your experience of life is happening moment to moment. And so I think there's huge value. Like when I say it's the most valuable commodity, it's to the technology company, it's more valuable than gold, right? It's a precious resource. And in any moment, your attention's all you've got. My buddy Chip Chipman, who's a dear friend and colleague, an amazing teacher of this understanding, the way he put it to me once, he said, the feeling you're living in is all you get. The feeling you're living in is all you get. My experience is the better you understand these principles. My own experience has been, as I understand these principles better, I get to spend more of life in a more beautiful feeling, more of the time. And when I lose sight of it, I come back to it more quickly. So there seem to be considerable advantages to understanding this more deeply. I've got another company I'm working with, and I'm co-founding with some buddies at the moment called Litfully. And our tagline for it is upgrade your inner lifestyle. Because everyone's working on upgrading their outer lifestyle. But if your inner lifestyle isn't good, it doesn't matter what your outer lifestyle's like. So I think I'm going to give you one more concept to play with, and then we'll jump to a coaching demo. Anyone have like a teddy bear or a lovey or that sort of thing when they were a kid? Anyone? Okay, great. So speaking to you as an adult, if you look at a little kid, if they've got a teddy bear or a security blanket or that sort of thing, it's called a transitional object. And when they're feeling, maybe they're going off to bed or something, they have that and they feel a feeling of comfort and connection and well-being when they hold and smell that security blanket or that teddy bear or that sort of thing. And if you take them on holiday and accidentally leave the bear or the blanket at the hotel when you go home, there's hell to pay. And it genuinely seems to the child like their beautiful feelings of peace and security and connection and being are coming from the teddy bear or the blanket or the stuffed rabbit, whatever it might be. It genuinely seems like that to the child, right? Like my eldest daughter, Tilly, she had a bear that she still had when she was, I don't know, 14 and 15, and it was almost like fallen to bits, but it was just had so many memories in that. But you and I as adults, we know that 100% of those feelings of peace and security and being are coming from within the child. Right? 0% are coming from the bear or the blanket or whatever. If you open up the bear, you'll find that it's full of stuffing. It doesn't have a feeling transmitter or some heroin in it. It's 100% is coming from within the child. 0% is coming from the bear, right? And if the bear gets left at the Airbnb and the child's losing their mind or like freaking out, 100% of those feelings of distress are coming from the child and 0% are coming from the bear, right? Anyone disagree with that, or are we all on the same page so far? Okay. But how does it start to look different when we start talking about the adult teddy bears of a job or a partner or that car we want or the career we want? How does it seem different when we're talking about the teddy bear of our physical body or our bank balance or our personality defects or our feelings or our diagnosis or whatever? It can genuinely seem to us like some portion of our experience is coming from somewhere out there in the world of jobs and bosses and other people, partners particularly. They can be very compelling teddy bears. But the fact of it that I'm saying, which you can disagree with, my assertion is 100% of your felt experience is coming from within, 100% of the time, no exceptions. 0% is coming from out there in other people, in jobs, in money, in the past, in the future, in our personalities, in our diagnoses. It's 100% inside out job. That's what I call the teddy bear factor. And I don't want you to take my word for it. My aim in this conversation is that you, using that innate capacity for realization, that you realize it for yourself, that you glimpse something of the truth of that, just like you glimpse the FedEx. So first of all, I'm no fan of cruelty to animals or people. And there's a lot of it about. Now, you said something very interesting. What I heard you say was that I'm a person for whom that is non-negotiable. I will never be a person who's not upset by that. As long as you believe that you'll never be a person who will not be upset by that, you will never be a person who will not be upset by that. And check this out. This is amazing. So I love going for walks in the woods. I was going for a walk with my dog in the woods today. And there are rabbits in the woods where we live, rabbits and hares. You sometimes see hares running about. They're amazing. Now, for a rabbit, every day is like being on the front lines of the Vietnam War. They are getting dive bombed by predator birds of prey. They're getting chased by dogs who want to tear them to bits. They're getting shot at by kids with BB guns. They're getting pursued by everything from cats to whatever else lives in those woods. But here's the funny thing. Most of the time, they're chilled out, eating and having sex. They're very relaxed. They don't have any stress-related diagnoses. They don't have any stress-related illnesses, for that matter. They're not on any prescription medication. They go into fight or flight once or twice a day to save their life, and then they chill. It's interesting. Now, I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't be upset about, but what I can guarantee you is 100% of your upset about animal cruelty is being generated from within you. 0% of it's coming from anywhere else. No, I'm not saying there's not a therefore in that. I've got nothing to say. You are free to be upset about anything you like. That is your prerogative. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be, like, but the fact of the matter, the fact of it is you're living in a thought-generated perceptual experience being created moment to moment from within. And it often seems to you and to me, there's more to it than that, but there isn't. Great question. I want to do a coaching demo in a minute, but any other questions before we get into it? Because I'm saying some stuff that if I was sitting where you're sitting, I might well be saying, that is a load of crap, or he doesn't know what it's like for me, or that sort of thing. So if anyone's got that going on, I want to hear it, because like I said at the outset, I don't want you to take my word for it. Either what I'm pointing to is a fact. And if it's a fact, there's an old saying, if you see someone having a fight with reality, put your money on reality, because reality always wins. And I'm saying this is reality. This is reality. So there's no should in this. I've got nothing to say about what you should or shouldn't do, what you should or shouldn't value, what you should or shouldn't think. I'm just saying this is how it works. To the child, it genuinely seems like the teddy bear is the source of their peace of mind and well-being. But that is a trick of the mind. 100% of the peace of mind and well-being is coming from within the child. And that the implications of that are shocking if you stop and think about it. What that means is that every beautiful feeling you've ever experienced in your life, all the good stuff, came from within you. 100% of it, no exceptions. Even the stuff you blamed on that girl or that guy or that holiday or that experience, no, that came from within you as well. It's 100% deal. 100% came from within. 0% came from out there. Now, I'm not saying, I'll give you an example. My girlfriend, I love her with all my heart. I would kill or die for that woman. I love her with all my heart. But I also know that all those feelings of love and beauty, they're coming from within me. That's just how it works. It doesn't make me love her any less. In fact, it makes the experience of it even more beautiful, just knowing how it works. And it makes our relationship much better because we're much less likely to bother each other and to hold a grudge and all that sort of stuff. So it's funny, actually, when people ask me, what's the biggest thing these principles have done for you? It's like love, connection, and relationships. I have more love and connection in the average day than I used to in the average year. And I no longer have to break up with girlfriends every 5 minutes, which is nice. So yeah, I'm saying that 100% of all the beautiful feelings you've ever experienced came from within. 100% of the rubbish ones as well, which is liberating to know. And you can realize this for yourself. My friend and colleague, Bill Pettit, who I believe you've had Dr. Bill speaking here, he said something I thought was quite profound. He said, if you're working on the electrical system in the house, it can be very valuable because you can turn on lights and turn on the dishwasher and that sort of thing. If you're working on the electrical system, you can also get it electrocuted if you don't understand how the system works. So if you're speaking to an electrician and they were a newbie electrician, they said, what's the thing that I can do that's going to help me use this stuff well and not get electrocuted? You say, get a better understanding of how it works. Like for most of us, we've got this incredible, we've been gifted this beautiful system, but not shown how it works. And so we're trying to use it's interesting. I have a client who's a nuclear physicist, right? Now, you never meet any folk nuclear physicists. Anyone who's a nuclear physicist, they've studied the hell out of it. But everyone I meet is a folk psychologist. Everyone I meet thinks they understand their own psychology. They think they get what's going on. And what I found is almost none of us know what's going on. And there's a way that it works. And if you think that Rani and I are onto something, my number one piece of advice for being able to manage, to navigate the ups and downs of emotions is get a better understanding about how the system you're already using works. So if someone comes driving up to your house in a car and it's all smashed up and they're like, you watch them crashing down the street and that sort of thing. And they say, hey, I just got the keys to this thing and I've driven it across town. I've never driven before, but it sure was an interesting drive. I smashed it all up. What should I do? Be like, learn to drive. That's step one. Most of us have never learned to drive our nervous systems. We don't understand how this beautiful spiritual understanding of how our minds work. We've never been given the handbook. And so, yeah, get a deeper understanding of how the system works. You get a deeper understanding of how the system works, a whole bunch of the problems are just going to go away. And a whole bunch of the good stuff is going to come to the surface. Like so many of the things that I used to be bothered by, they just don't bother me in the slightest now. It's not that I don't lose sight of the truth of this. I had to apologize to my girlfriend twice today because I behaved like an ass, but because I wasn't seeing it in that moment. But I get over it, we get over it. And it doesn't really stay with you in the same way once you understand what's going on. I say that, and then next time I see you, she's dumped me for what I did today, but we'll see. I think it'll be fine. She's very forgiving. So yeah, that my only suggestion, Felita, would be if you see some merit in what I'm pointing to, make it a priority to get a deeper understanding. That's what happened to me. That I told you in June 2009, the moment I realized that these are principles, that this is a pre-existing reality. And I know I'm banging on about this, and I apologize for it. But the reason I could confidently know that you would see the arrow in the FedEx logo is because it's already there. I remember I was working with a group once, and there's this woman, she goes, I can't see it. I just don't think I've got that mind. I'm not going to be able to see it. I'm like, yeah, you will. She's like, why are you so confident? Because it's there and you have the capacity to see it. She's like, oh, there it is. Yeah, of course, because it's there. So I'm saying this is already there. You have the capacity to see it. And either I'm right about that or I'm not. So you got to decide whether I'm right about that, like whether there's merit to this. I'm saying there is, and I've taught literally thousands of people, and the kinds of things people say is best decision I ever made in my life. So this is a game changer, but you got to make it a priority. You got to go, but you guys are, that's why you're here. You've made it a priority. So I don't really need to tell you that, but that would be my number one suggestion, is continue to deepen your understanding. Like I literally called my office and said, we're changing direction with the business, because it was clear to me that the number one thing I could do to have a better life was get a deeper understanding of these principles. So that's what I've spent the past 14 years doing. And I'm a very satisfied customer. Here's the interesting thing. If you show that image to a group of people, they pop at different times. They go, oh, but the funny thing is, it doesn't take any effort. It's almost a lack of effort. It's once you stop looking for it, it jumps out at you. So I've got a kind of weird job. So my job description is, and people hire me for vast sums of money to do this one thing. And the one thing is, I help make it easy for them to go pop and have those to see the arrow deeper in this understanding. So the thing that's going to make a difference to you is your own realization. So I'm not really saying go and think about this a lot. What I'm saying is put yourself in the situations where it's going to be easy for you to have realizations about it. So just like you had a realization about that arrow, the thing that's going to upgrade your understanding or deepen your understanding is going to be your own insights. It's going to be your own realizations that come from within you. Now, different people find it easier to get insights in different ways. So for one person, it might be listening to Sid Banks recordings. Like I love listening to Sid Banks recordings. I used to hate them. I didn't know what he was on about. I thought it was all gobbledygook, but now I love him. So for one person, it might be listening to Sid Banks recordings. For someone else, it might be going to training courses. For someone else, it might be reading books. For someone else, it might just be going for a long walk and letting your... I've asked 1,000 people, so I'll ask you guys, when do you get your best ideas? So I've asked this question to prison inmates. I've asked it to CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I've asked it to generals and colonels in the army. I've asked it to drug addicts. I've asked it to alcoholics. I've asked it to all my clients. When do you get your best ideas? And the answers are always the same. When I'm in the shower, when I'm out for a walk, when I'm just about to drop off to sleep, when I wake up first thing in the morning. People rarely get their best ideas when they're thinking about it. They get their best ideas when they're not thinking about it, when they're in what I call an insight-friendly space. So whatever works for you, I'd encourage you to do whatever you need to do to increase the amount of time that you spend in an insight-friendly space, whether that's reading a book or listening to recordings or out for a walk or having a shower 5 hours a day, whatever works for you. So that, rather than my suggestion being, go and think about this a bunch, I invite you to reflect on what's going to make it easy for you to get into an insight-friendly space. What's going to make it easy for you to be in that more open, reflective space, just like you were when you saw the arrow. You wouldn't have been able to see the arrow if you weren't in a more reflective, open, curious, insight-friendly space. So you have that innate capacity. So that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to activate that innate capacity while someone is pointing in the direction of this pre-existing fact, just like I was pointing to that FedEx arrow, so that when your insight goes, it goes, oh, there it is. That's what's going to do it for you with this understanding. Whatever's going to help you be in that insight-friendly space while you're looking in the direction of this understanding. Okay, so it makes sense to look in the direction of this understanding. Because here's the thing, I was in the field of psychology and doing all this stuff for a decade and spending lots of time in an insight-friendly space, but I never saw what Sid Banks was pointing to because I wasn't looking there. No one was, just like you've seen the FedEx logo a million times, but no one was pointing there. So I'm going to say insight-friendly space plus someone pointing to the truth of this understanding. That's going to do it. Now, some of my favorite ways of doing it are reading books, listening to audiobooks, listening to lectures by people talking about this stuff, going on training courses, going for long walks, having conversations about it. Because it looks to me like this is what I refer to as the ultimate leverage point. If the experience you're living in is all you get, then it really makes sense to be interested in the number one thing that's dictating the quality of that experience. Let me ask you a weird question. If this conversation, because what we'll do is we'll chat for 10, 15 minutes and you'll see whatever and that sort of thing. But if this conversation were just an incredible success, like so much so that a year from now, you're looking back and going, oh my God, that was amazing. What a difference. Like maybe I bump into you somewhere. And you're like, Jamie, that conversation, that changed everything. I'm just making a list of all those things. Because what I heard you say, there'd be less striving. I'd have more energy. I'd stop having to be perfect for everyone. I wouldn't be so overwhelmed. And I'd feel like I'm in the driving seat and have more control. What is it that connects all of those, would you say? What do they all got in common? If we had to create an umbrella category for those, what would it be? You said that. So if we could have a shift in how you experience, relate to, see, perceive yourself, then all of that other stuff would change. Oh, by the way, I'll sometimes go quiet just because I'm trying to think, what am I curious to know? So what do you suppose would have to happen for you to be the sort of person that stuff just doesn't bother? What are you afraid would happen if people thought you were lazy? I hate to break this to you. As best I can tell, people judge people regardless of what they do. That's just people for you. When someone's judging you, it's more about themselves than it is about you. But is your theory that if you get everything right, then no one will judge you? As I sit here talking to you, I feel quite close to you, like I can feel your heart. And what I know is that love and care and compassion that you feel for your children That's a natural expression of the beauty that resides at the heart of your being when there's nothing getting in the way. My assertion to you is that love and care and compassion, that's the feeling of who you are. And then your judgments and your criticisms and your ideas about yourself, it's just a bunch of habits that you've learned. And like you said, that you were really good at. But that there's no truth in it. There's no substance to that. The truth is the light at the heart of your being. So I guess what I'm wondering is, I wonder what would happen if you were living from the truth of that. I'm feeling a connection to you right now, so I know it's very close to the surface, just like that arrow in the FedEx logo. It was right there as soon as we look at it. Are you open to the possibility that richness and beauty has been there all along? It's 1,000 times more true than any of the ideas you may have had about yourself until now. Then the other bit's just static on the radio. The other bit's just fake news. There's nothing you can do about fake news except ignore it, right? It's at least good to know that it's fake news, and you'll know from the feeling that comes with it. All right. All right. I'll tell you what, we've got about 34 minutes left. I think I'm going to tell you guys about the impact elevator. Actually, you know what? I'm going to tell you a story about Jack. Okay. This is not an amazing picture of Jack, but it will give you a sense of his personality. There's Jack. He is very sweet. It's very sweet. And even though he's only about not even a foot tall, he has the impression that he's a massive dog and is basically king of the castle wherever he goes. So here's what I wanted to tell you about Jack. So Jack, ever since he was little, we would be sitting in my girlfriend's living room as it got dark at night, and she has French windows, like glass windows down at the far end of the living room. And at a certain point, when it got dark enough, he would catch sight of his own reflection in the windows, and he would go tearing down the living room, barking. Then about 6 feet from the windows, he would leap into the air and attack the other dog that he could see in the windows, and then fall to the ground. And then he would strut away going, I showed that guy. He would, and he would do it every night. And I would fall about laughing because it was so funny to me. And I was like, that little dog doesn't realize that's him in the mirror. And then I'm sitting there one day and I suddenly realized, well, it's not him in the mirror. I suddenly realized, oh, that's an image of himself from 20 feet away. But he doesn't know himself as an image from 20 feet away. He only knows himself from 0 millimeters away. There's this famous psychology experiment they do with little kids under the age of 18 months. They put them in front of a mirror, and the kids just go, oh, look, a baby. And then they put a curtain over the mirror, and they put a blotch of rouge on the kid's cheek. And then they take the mirror away, and the kid goes, oh, baby. And they go up to the mirror and they try and find the baby. They don't realize that's their own image in the mirror. And then at about 18 months, something fascinating happens. At about 18 months, they're looking in the mirror, and then they put the curtain down, and they put the blotch of rouge on the kid's cheek, and then the curtain goes up, and the kid goes like that. So now they know, they've learned that image over there from 3 or 4 feet away, that's them. That's what they've learned. But the thing is, you can see it right now on the screen. You can see yourself. What? Look, point at your face on the screen. That looks like you, right? Except my favorite story one of my favorite stories. I got millions of favorite stories, but this one's about Picasso, the famous artist. And the story is he was on a train with someone one day, a stranger he met on a train. They were having a conversation, and the stranger was telling him about his business. And he said, "What do you do? What do you do?" And he said, "It was Picasso." I said Picasso, didn't I? I didn't say Gaudi, did I? Yeah, Picasso. He said, I'm an artist." He goes, "Oh, really? What kind of things do you paint?" And Picasso showed him some of his work. He goes, "Mr. Picasso, that's terrible. Why don't you paint things how they actually look?" And Picasso said, "I don't know what you mean." And the guy got out his wallet and he takes out a photograph of his wife. And he said, "That's a picture of my wife. That's what she really looks like." And Picasso seizes the photo and he looks at it and he goes, "Tell me, is she really that small and flat?" And here's the thing, you've learned that image on the screen, that's you, that is, but it ain't. Like, you can see me, right? But that's not me. That's some pixels on a screen. It's an illusion that you're engaging with as though it's an actual reality. And you look at that image of you on the screen and you think that actually is you, but that's an image of you from 1 or 2 or 3 feet away. And you've learned over the years to identify with that image. That image is not you. There's a story about this young man called Simon Moon who decides he wants to become enlightened. And he goes to the Zendo and he says to the Zen master, he says, "I want to become enlightened." And the Zen master says, "Okay, go into your room and stay there till I come and get you and just meditate on an ox." And think about an ox, not sit on an ox and meditate. Think about an ox. And I'll come and get you when you're ready. So he goes to his room and for an hour, he's thinking about an ox. For a half a day, he's thinking about an ox. A day goes by, 2 days, 3 days. For a week, he's thinking about an ox. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he's thinking about an ox. After 3 weeks, there's this at the door. And the Zen master goes, "Come out." And he goes, "I can't, my horns won't fit through the door." See, if you go to the movies, you ever been to the movies and you're watching the movies and something is about to bonk the person on the head on the screen and you duck? Anyone ever had that? That's because we tend to identify into what we're looking at, right? You got taught from 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 months that image of you is who you are, but that's not who you are. And that image got beliefs associated with it and ideas associated with it and conditions and all the judgments. And that's not even you. That's an image of you that you've learned to identify with. But who you are is so much more than that. There's this quote by Teilhard de Chardin, who I bastardize his quote. I say, "We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're one spiritual being having 8 billion human experiences. And who you really are is that one spiritual being. Who you really are is consciousness itself, having an experience of life. And you've been conditioned to believe that who you are is that image of self from a few feet away. That ain't you. That's just a figment of your imagination. And who you really are is the source of all the love and beauty and peace and joy in your life. And who you really are is the source of all the security, even when you attribute it to something else or someone else or the past or the future or whatever. It depends what you mean by trauma. So it's interesting. My downstairs neighbor, Rani, there's someone in the waiting room. I don't know if you need to let him in.
I'm not sure who this is.
Me neither. It's not me. So my downstairs neighbor, he's moved now, but he did what's called restorative justice. And he was telling me a story about a young man who he was working with. And this young man who was like, I think 17 or 18 years old, had been stabbed in a street fight. He survived and he was in hospital and getting well. I live in Nottingham. It's a bit stabby in places. And so he was fine. He had no trauma effect, no delayed trauma, nothing like that. It was fine. It's just like, it just happens. Just flesh wound, whatever. But his little brother, who wasn't there when the incident happened, but afterwards his little brother heard about the stabbing and saw his brother in hospital. And then his little brother got traumatized from hearing about it. And that's the power of thought and the power of our understanding. So I find the whole topic fascinating. I've got a book here by a woman called Marilyn Bowman called Individual Differences in Post-Traumatic Response, Problems with the Adversity Distress Connection. I'm going to read you something from this. So chapter 1 is called, Is There a Problem in Understanding Post-Event Distress? So it goes like this. You guys okay if I read to you for a minute? Okay. Says, a striking scene was observed on the seashore one August in which men and women wept and lamented loudly. As a result of what had happened, they knew they were forever damned and doomed. In another setting, 2 little children burst into tears when a man was killed by a gunshot close by. In yet another situation, a man described a certain 3 decades of his life as having been fun. He said, I am filled with gratitude for the friends, the adventure, the love, the learning, the excitement, the sheer fun of those years. Which of these people had been subject to a toxic event and what was its nature? So the men and women expressing powerful despair had tried to feed themselves to sharks at the mouth of the Hooghly River in India in 1640 because they were devout Hindus of a sect who believed this sacrifice was to their spiritual benefit. When they found that the already sated sharks were unwilling to eat them, they concluded that they had been found unworthy because they'd been too sinful to have their sacrifice accepted, and wailed at their bad luck in not being eaten. In the second case, the children were crying because they'd been unable to see a prisoner being executed by soldiers. They became quickly content when their father, a Chinese warlord in Szechuan in the 1920s, held them up so they could see all they wanted of the gory details of the dying man's suffering. In the final case, the man was Sidney Rittenberg, a young American soldier who stayed in China after World War II. He was describing a period that included 2 extended imprisonments, totaling more than 15 years in solitary confinement in harsh prisons during the turbulent political and military events of the era. The book goes on to say, such accounts provide striking examples of the extreme variability of the ways that humans interpret life events. They show how these interpretations have a powerful effect on well-being that can be contrary to common expectations about the power of life events in affecting emotions. Professional mental health activities are increasingly directed to traumatic life events as the cause of distress disorders, yet these examples suggest that event characteristics may be much less powerful than is commonly assumed. My starting point is that while there are terrible events that happen in the world, there's no such thing as a traumatic event, yet how we interpret an event, not on purpose, like just how we make sense of it, can make the difference between a lasting effect and no effect at all. You would not believe the number of clients I've had who have had things happen to them which would make your hair curl, who had no lasting effect from it. And yet other clients who have been subject to very minor events, like things that you wouldn't even mention in passing, and it's had a lasting negative effect on them. So the sense you make of something and how you relate to those perceptions. In fact, I'll go even further. I'm going to suggest that the difference between one person and another in terms of the experience they have and the results they have is a function of how they are organizing and relating to their own perceptions. Now, I'm not saying that there's no such thing as traumatic experience, traumatic response. I know that there, you know, I've worked with people who are working with street kids. I've worked with therapists who are working with street kids who have been through horrendous stuff, and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So I know that can have lasting effects, but it's very unpredictable. And it's going to depend on how the person interprets and organizes and makes sense of those experiences. And just like you saw the FedEx logo in a heartbeat, a single insight can release combinations of thought and feeling and sensation that have had people locked in traumatic experience patterns for decades. So that's my take on it. If I'm working with a client and they say, such and such bad thing just happened to me, I'll say, I'm sorry to hear that. But I'm not going to assume that I don't know what their response to it's going to be. And I know that one of my teachers used to say, you know what, the best thing about the past is it's over.
Yeah.
Like, what the fact of the matter is, we're living in an experience of life that's being generated right now. And if we understand how that experience is being generated, it can be profoundly liberating. All right. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Thanks for your questions. Rani, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you all. And, I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you, Jamie. And can I just thank you on behalf of everyone here? It's been it's been 15 minutes past the normal scheduled time. I would say that you have done your own preparatory work, like you have done the presentation, so it just makes us feel special. Or Jamie has even done a presentation for us. Everything is powerful. Once we see something that we hadn't seen before, it's very hard to not see it again. So we will never ever see FedEx the same way now, because every time we'll see the error, the first thing is the same thing you're pointing to. But once we really understand how the mind works and the principles behind clarity, once we really get a sense of that no matter what's going on in a life, there's only one way the system works. And if we keep looking at that, because you said keep coming back to that, keep deepening the understanding. If all we do as a group over the next 6 months that we have together is just keep coming back to that, what if the system only works one way, no matter what's happening around that? I think that itself is going to deepen our understanding.
And the thing that will deepen your understanding is your innate capacity for insight, your innate capacity for realization. And when you saw the arrow in the FedEx logo, that's a demonstration of that. You've got that on board already.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Rani. Thanks, guys.
Hey, welcome back. I hope you really enjoyed the masterclass. I felt it was profound. And I'm going to share with you my takeaways. Like, you will have your own takeaways, and you might want to pause the video at this stage before you even look at my takeaways to see what your takeaways have been. So if you want to, you can pause the video now. Welcome back. So I'm going to share my insights. We talked about the teddy bear factor. This used to belong to my daughter, and now it's in my office. For the child, it really feels like the teddy bear is where their security is coming from. And if they lose the teddy bear, and then all hell breaks loose. And I remember my daughter having a soft teddy bear that she can't even remember what it's called now, but she would never part with that. And then we lost it once, and it was really upsetting for her. We replaced it with another teddy bear, but it was never the same. We laugh because we think, oh, bless them. They're really innocent. They don't understand that it's not a teddy bear. But what about the adult teddy bears? And this is where we get very serious. What about the adult teddy bears? What about the job, the money, our relationships, and anything else you can think of? We adults also have teddy bears. So it's a really fascinating topic for all of us to look at. What is my adult teddy bear here? That the teddy bear TB factor. The TB has no feeling transmitter. I loved when Jamie Smart said that. The teddy bear does not have any feeling transmitter. The power to transmit a certain kind of feeling. It might be a good feeling, it might be a bad feeling. So That's fascinating. I use the term mental wealth because I wanted to make a distinction between what people talk about mental health, which is mental illness and all the well-being tools and techniques. I want to make it a distinction because we are pointing to something very different to what the traditional mental health paradigm is pointing to. So the mental wealth paradigm is everything we are looking for is already within us. We have been blessed with divine gifts. One of these gifts is our innate capacity for realization, for insights or sight from within. Now, that to me is really hopeful. If we already know that the greatest treasure we have is already within, and that we might not see it right now in an area of our life, we might really be struggling, that doesn't mean that we won't see something there. It's very important for anyone who is struggling with mental health difficulties, really wake up to the fact that once they see something, it's hard to unsee it. So I love the FedEx arrow. When people know that they have got this innate capacity for realization, they are hopeful. When we as a professional, or we as their coach, know that it's only a matter of time when they just see something, if they keep looking in this direction, it gives us hope. And Sydney Banks says, just because someone has been suffering for a long time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, doesn't mean that it will take another 10, 20, 30 years for them to have an insight. It can land anytime because we are built for insight. So if as a coach, as a professional, we are absolutely clear, we see it very clearly, we also get patient with people because there have been times we haven't seen it in our own lives and we get tripped by the mind again and again. So this is very hopeful. And I think this is also what Jamie Smart talked about, his realization. One huge realization is that 100% of our felt experiences are coming from the principle of thought taking form moment to moment. Now, this one is once we really see this, we are not talking about, oh, I'm thinking this, or thought as in my thinking. We are talking about thought as a divine pre-existing intelligence, thought as energy. Once we really see this and we experiment with that, we test it out, just like we understand the principle of gravity, we understand the principle of thought, then that itself is going to make a huge shift in someone's life and help them go beyond diagnosis. The teddy bear effect. So I tried to draw a teddy bear as well. Okay, the teddy bear effect is basically it's a trick of the mind. It's a thought generated reality. It's a perceptual reality. The more we ask ourselves, what is my adult teddy bear? Is it really that my past is currently making me feel the way I'm feeling? Is it really possible for my husband to maybe making me upset because he said something? Does he have the feeling transmitter? He has feelings, but does he have the feeling transmitter button where he can just project and then it transmit a certain feeling to me? When we allow ourselves to slow down and see that's not the case, we all can have greater freedom in life. And there will be times we don't need to see it, but we have the capacity, we have the innate capacity for realization, we have the innate capacity for having insights after insights. And that's so beautiful, beautiful to know. And it also helps us slow down that I don't have to manufacture insights. I don't need to think about my problem and come in and try to figure out a solution, like how am I going to create an amazing business, or how can I lose weight, or all of that. We have capacity for insights. Of course, we need to take action, don't get me wrong. But when we are aligned, when we come from this place of knowing about the TB factor, and we know that this is how it operates, this is how we all operate 100% of the time, no exceptions, something is going to shift and we are going to be more forgiving of ourselves, more forgiving of others, more loving, more understanding. have more compassion, and we just love ourselves more and more, because we realize that in this world of form, in this journey as a human being, we are going to get tripped again and again by countless teddy bears in our lives. Doesn't mean that we don't enjoy the teddy bear moments. We know where our experiences are coming from. It's never from the teddy bear and always from within. So that's very helpful and freeing to know. And finally, what he said, hang out in an insight-friendly space with someone pointing in this direction. So I would say get a coach. If you have any area in your life where you feel that there is something else for you to see, whether it's relationship, whether it's your health, whether it's money, whether it's job, career, whatever it is, get a coach who is really grounded in the three principles of understanding, I would say, and see what happens in your life. For a long time, I felt that I didn't need a coach because guess what? I share this understanding with people. And since last year, I hired a coach, and it's really interesting. And my coaches, by the way, they've all been grounded in this understanding. It's been fascinating how just having a sounding board, like hanging out on an insight friendly space, like during a session with someone looking in this direction, and being very open about what's bothering us, because the truth is we might think that yes, I can understand that it's all coming from thought in a moment, but this is not. And we all have a but. Yes, but we all have one or two special teddy bears that are very different to the other teddy bears out there. And so having someone pointing you in this direction, helping you take action, and with love, challenging you to really see this, we all need that in life. So I would say definitely consider a coach. If you are a coach yourself and you have already got a coach, please take your teddy bears, your adult teddy bears, with you to the coaching session. If you are someone who have a label of mental health diagnosis or physical health diagnosis, and you feel that there's something for you to see, please go through this again and see what lands for you. So that's what I would say. And I'm also here if you need to have a conversation with me. I'm very happy to have a conversation. If you are interested in joining the Beyond Diagnosis program for March 2024, I'm already starting to have conversations. And so let me know if you're interested, because we are going to have a deep dive in the form of a group, in the form of a community, looking in this direction. And I can tell you that all the feedback from my current participants have been amazing. Their teddy bears are the dropping, and they know that they can have fun with the teddy bear, but it doesn't define them. So that's all for today. I hope this has been enjoyable. You got a lot out of this. Please share with me your insights. I'm doing this, and I always love to hear what are people hearing from this. And if you find that this has been really amazing and you have got someone in your mind, maybe with a diagnosis of physical health condition or mental health condition, who could really benefit from watching this video, please share with them. All right, lots of love, have fun, enjoy your learning, even enjoy your teddy bear moments. We are spiritual energy in disguise as human, so we always need to come back to it. Lots of love. Bye for now.